Hello and welcome to Math Lessons with Linda. Today's topic is adding and subtracting integers. So let's get right to it. I'm going to write down two problems, 8 plus 3 and -2 plus -5. These problems may not seem related, but they are. So the first problem, 8 plus 3, that's something that you've likely done since elementary school. We have two positive numbers that we're adding together. So we either have memorized our addition facts or you can use a number line, but two positives added together equals just a larger positive, which in this case is 11. The other problem is -2 plus -5. The reason that this one is similar to the first problem is that the numbers that we're adding together are both the same sign. That means they're both negative numbers. So when I add together two negative numbers, I'm going to just add the number values, so 2 plus 5, which is 7. But since they're both negative, my answer is just a larger negative. So the way these two problems are related is if you have the same sign of numbers that you're adding together, they're either both positive or both negative, you keep the sign and you add the numbers together. And that will work anytime you have two integers that have the same sign, whether it's both positive or both negative. Okay, so let's look at a couple other examples that we have. So -4 minus 6. So this one, I tend to, when I can, any subtraction problem you can easily turn into an addition problem. Because instead of subtracting a number, what you can do is you can add the opposite. So what that means is I'm really saying I want to take -4 and add a -6. That's another way of saying I want to subtract a 6 away. I want to add a -6. And these two problems mean exactly the same thing. The reason this way is a little more intuitive is because now I can clearly see that both of my numbers are negative. So I'm going to get a larger negative for my answer when I add. So I'm going to add the 4 and the 6, which is 10. But since they're both negative numbers, it's going to be a -10 for my answer. Let's look at another example. I have -7 plus 3. So here's a problem, the first one we've had, where the signs are different. When we have different signs for our two values, then we change the way that we approach the problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out, okay, which of the actual absolute value numbers is bigger? Is 7 a bigger number or is 3 a bigger number? Clearly 7 is the larger number. I'm going to have in my answer the sign that goes along with the larger number. So in this case, my answer is going to be a negative. 7's bigger than 3, I'm going to keep the negative sign. Once you have figured out what your sign is, all you're going to do is subtract these two numbers. So 7 minus 3 is 4. So this means my answer is a -4. An easy way to work with some negative and positive numbers is to give them a value. So make this temperature. It's -7 degrees outside. The temperature rises in the positive direction 3 degrees. So now I'm only at -4 degrees. That's one way you can look at a problem with positive and negatives. Here's another example. And this one is a little bit different also, because these do have different signs. And I did tell you to take the sign of, when they're different, we're looking for the larger number. In this case, I don't have a larger number, and that's because these numbers are a special case, which is that they're opposites. So when I have two numbers that are opposites, a positive 1 and a negative 1, or a positive 12 and a negative 12, they cancel each other out. It's like a balancing act. So whenever I add two opposites, my answer is always going to be 0. Here's our last example for today. 3 minus a negative 2. So we have not had one where we have a subtraction and then we also have a negative number here. So I do want to change this negative into addition when I can. So if I'm going to change this into a positive for adding, the negative now has to jump into here. When I have two negatives together in this kind of a situation, they turn into addition or a positive as well. So this actually turns into a +2. Those two negatives sort of cancel each other out and now they're a positive value. So now what I've got is 3 plus 2. I have no negatives left. This is just like our very first problem. I'm going to add these numbers together and I'll get +5. So this gives you a few examples on different ways and situations on adding and subtracting integers together.